Hi there. Well, I made it to my final destination here in southern Thailand. If you joined us recently, you may not be aware that I spend several weeks a year, much like many of our members will head to California or Arizona or perhaps Florida to get away from Canadian winter. So I spend my time down here in Thailand. And as I was traveling down here all by myself, I spend about half of my travels when I'm not traveling with members, I travel on my own. And the whole question of single supplement came up. And having read through many of the questionnaires that people have submitted, I'm aware that it's something that a lot of people are concerned about, what we do about it and how it is that we can avoid them, why they exist in the first place. And so I'd like to just take a couple of minutes to explain a little bit about single supplements, why they exist, and what it is that we're trying to do to avoid them wherever we can. The single supplement is not a surcharge that's imposed by the tour operator or the travel agency or people like us. Frankly, it's simply a pure calculation error. Not error, but a pure calculation phenomenon. If you look at your average tour, it always says that it's based on two-person sharing, based on double occupancy. And in any given program, whether it's a program by coach or a cruise program or a rail program, anywhere between a third and a half or sometimes even more of the entire tour price is the accommodation. And the accommodation, whether it's a hotel or a cruise ship, be it a big cruise ship or a small cruise ship, is always charged at the room rate. So you pay one price for the room, whether there's one person in that room or two people in the room. So just to do some quick math, if, for example, a tour costs $6,000 and the value of the accommodation inside that tour was $2,000, that would mean that half of the total accommodation or room costs would be, or $2,000, or for two people, $4,000. So as a result, if you're traveling alone, in that exact example, you'd have to pay the extra $2,000 as a single supplement, as it were, which is basically just the cost of the other person not occupying that room. And as I said, the same thing applies for cruise lines, rail travel, pretty much any form of travel. It's all based on two people sharing a room. And that's a reason that a single supplement exists. And I realize that sounds a little bit unfair, but it's the reality of the industry. It's just like with airfares. One day it's $1,000, and next day you find a seat sale for half that, and there's not much you can do about it. It's just the way it is. However, there is something that we can do about it, and so there's a couple of different things. First of all, when you travel in Europe, it's a little bit different because a lot of countries in Europe, a lot of hotels don't actually charge by the room. They charge by the person. So instead of charging 100 euros per night €200 euros per night for a room, they'll charge 100 euros per person. And in many cases in Europe, instead of charging 200 euros for a single person, they'll have a special single rate because they often have rooms that are dedicated just for single people. They'll have one single bed in them, for example, as opposed to having a double bed. And then instead of charging 100 euros, they may charge 120 euros. So therefore, that extra cost is only about 20% of the accommodation. And this is exactly the type of thing that we're looking for at Wheel and Anchor, is places like in many parts of Europe where they do have preferred rates for singles, so that we can offer programs with a much reduced single supplement than what you'll find on cruise ships or on a lot of conventional programs. Of course, the other way to avoid the single supplement is if you're willing to share a room with another traveler. And this is a bit of a tricky subject for some people. Some people really like to travel alone and have their own space, whereas other people are quite keen on meeting other travelers. We have a lot of both members in Wheel and Anchor. We've got a lot of people who are keen to meet a travel companion, get to know them, and then perhaps travel in order to save that single supplement. And yet we have others who really do insist on their own private space. And again, we're developing programs to suit both types of people. We have our first, as you know, women-only single program, which is all single rooms, our Austrian wellness program happening in April. So that's an example where we were able to find a very unique spa resort hotel that specialized in single travelers. This is the kind of thing that I'm constantly on the lookout for all over the world, and you can count on at Wheel and Anchor we're going to be delivering more special programs for single travelers, and wherever we can, keeping that single supplement as low as possible. In the meantime, as always, happy travels.